Eric, was just that, that all these big people recognize it. Now, it's not like I think Bob Iger sits around and tweets his lunch or, plays Farmville on Facebook, but I'm pretty darn sure that he appreciates what it's doing for him. And even Oprah came around to it a little bit, although she's not exactly tweeting herself, but
right.
She knows it's out there and she knows it's important.
Well, it is important, especially in the real estate business, perhaps more so important now than it's ever been, that real estate professionals get on the bandwagon and not believe that just having a website is enough. It's got to be, there's a whole lot more to this. Let's talk about, our subject here, the frontier is now, how to make work and build business. What do you mean when you say the frontier is now?
So in my mind, there's a lot of business that's opportunities around us, but we're not seeing it because we're still thinking from our 1980s and our 1990s minds. We're not seeing that. It's like, as you just said, it's not okay just to have a website. You really need an expanded presence these days. You need possibly a blog, or you need to start doing some video. You need to be in the places where the people are. There's over 600 million users inside of Facebook, and if you're not even thinking about how to make some kind of relationship happen in there, you're skipping where a lot of people are spending their day. And it's not just kids. I mean, that's the other thing people tell me all the time. Well, yeah, Facebook's great if you're a college kid. There's over 700,000 new people join every day, most of them in the ages 31 to 60, most of them female. Now, that's all great demographics for a lot of people. The only thing is that their gateway drug of choice is photos of grandkids. So unless you're selling a house that looks like a grandkid, you've got to do a little bit of work to get in there and connect with these people.
Right.
But to me, when I say the frontier is now and the frontier is around us, what I'm saying is that, it's not okay to sit at a cubicle somewhere at a desk or to show up at the Rotary Club and think that's all you're doing. I mean, you need a web presence. You need something that's going to get people in. You need something that's going to lure people who are Googling you from across the world to find you. And I promise you, they're not just looking for, Caldwell Banker. They're not just looking for, whatever their agent broker company that they know off the top of their head is. They're looking for, where's a great place to live in northern Florida? And they're asking on places like Twitter, they're asking Google, they're asking on Facebook, and also on their own blogs. So in the relo business for residential real estate, that's important. In commercial real estate, the first place we go to look for that kind of stuff is Google. And if you have just a real simple basic web presence with your amazing headshot that someone took of you years ago, you're just not necessarily going to be the first person to connect up on that.
Well, I want to dive deeper into what real estate agents can do to improve their site. But let's talk about making work and building business. How are people doing that in this new frontier, the opportunities that exist in the frontier?
So, I mean, there's a lot of opportunities, and not all of these are going to relate to your real estate professionals, but maybe they can extrapolate a little bit from what I'm talking about and decide, I kind of get where he's going with that. First off, once you start building a web presence and once you have some kind of a way that people can understand and connect with you, there's so many easier ways to do transactions now, financial transactions to make something happen. So, for example, there's things like Amazon Payments or PayPal to transfer money over the web. So you don't have to take credit cards per se. You can use something like Amazon Payments or PayPal, and they'll process the credit card payment for you, or they'll just take a bank transaction. And so moving money around is faster. Moving smaller amounts of money around is faster, so that you could even do a small service for somebody and get something out of it. So things that I've seen people do for making work, for example, are be virtual assistants. I was just talking to a young lady, Leslie Joy, who is a virtual assistant, and she charges around $35 an hour to do things like market research or do things like email list gathering and do things that would help somebody like a realtor with their service. And you and I were talking a little bit earlier about the idea of once you figure out that you need that service and once you spend some money on a service like that, a rather enterprising person could think, well, if I need the service other people do, could I have this person who I'm paying actually write a system that explains what they're doing, and could I hire that person to manage a team of these people, and then could I put up a little virtual shingle and start offering something like virtual service? So I think there's just so many opportunities to do business, not with your neighbor, but with people all over the web. And then even so, should local business be important to you, there's other ways to advertise besides your local newspaper and or that little cork board at the grocery store.
Wow, that is definitely innovation and leveraging what is out there already. The idea of virtual assistants, I've heard about that. There are organizations, internet organizations that provide just hundreds of people all over the world that will provide assistance in just about anything from building a website to building a list.
Absolutely. And I mean, if you think about it, there's a lot of things that real estate agents and realtors and related people in the business need all the time. And certainly there's no one out there saying, don't worry, I've got enough, leads right now. I don't need any more. I'm all good. So I think given that that's not really true, right, I'm going to say that there's, right there and then there's a reason why you might want to pick up a project from some of these kind of folks.
Sure. So how has the web and social media changed how people buy real estate? And is the brick and mortar concept old school for real estate brokers? Should they start looking at expanding, their virtual presence in their market or even in the world, doing business internationally?
Well, I mean, it's a beautiful question, and obviously when you start thinking about doing international, you have to think about licensing and some of the other tricks that go with that. So, I mean, don't let me make it sound like it's super easy. But on the other side, I would say that what should be on top of mind is that if you have a piece of real estate, then you have, a few hundred square feet somewhere wherein which there's a door that opens and closes a certain few hours a day, and you have a whole bunch of things you have to pay for, including your rent and your heat and your phone and all that sort of stuff that's overhead before you even make a sale when you're doing the old brick and mortar style. Should you do it? Well, sure. I mean, it's always kind of peace of mind for a buyer to come to do the paperwork at your office. But, is that even the vital thing anymore? Maybe the vital thing is that you can actually go to their office and do it for them. I mean, if we've got things like mobile oil change and mobile car washing, why wouldn't mobile real estate help be an important part of the business? So I think,
that's a great idea.
If you think about it, right?
Right.
So I think that to go online is really important, and it's not you don't have to go in a really huge way. You definitely don't have to spend tens of thousands of dollars. I mean, you can go really, really cheap. You can just kind of cobble something together yourself, though it'll kind of look that way. Or you can spend just $1,000 or $2 and have a pretty nice presence that'll have a lot of the most modern features built in, where you won't be tied to some web person to change it for you all the time. Once it's all set up for you, they'll walk you through how to do it all, and then you pretty much have a system going from there on. I mean, that's one of the things Human Business Works built was a fairly simple, what we're calling home base maker, to help people make sites so that they can focus on their sales. But we're a little different than old-fashioned web designers insofar as we wanted to make something where the people have the power. The people could, click the edit button and you can change all the words you want right here, and it's not all that tricky. Because one of the things I was running into with people is that they'd spend $5,000, $7,000, $10,000 on a site, and then they'd say, "Oh, we don't really like that tagline anymore. We're going to change it." And they'd ask this designer, and they'd say, "Great, that's another $400 or $500." Well, if it's as easy as clicking an edit button, you could just do it. Then you're saving yourself tons of money, and you're using software that's a lot more generally available. Well, then you just focus on the part you want to do, which is selling homes and making people's lives better.
Well, I think you make a great point. Real estate has changed. We're not doing. I say many offices are not doing the volume they were, in 2011 or even 2010 that they were doing in 2008 or 2007, during the boom. And so there's been a significant reduction in revenue. But, unfortunately, expenses don't go down. And if you're stuck on a lease and what have you, you just can't wait till you get over it. But, there's a fear of not having a space for a real estate agent to work as a broker owner. There's a fear that if they don't have a place where they can make coffee, not make coffee, many of them do that, but make copies and meet with their clients, then it's not professional enough. What do you say to brokers who are kind of afraid to make that adjustment and to completely embrace, a virtual presence and require agents to, to embrace it themselves at their home.
Yeah, I think it is a tricky perception shift, and there is that sense of, maybe you're not doing it real or you're not being a grown-up or something if you do it. And, I just recently put myself back in an office after working out of coffee shops for a while. I run 3 different companies, and I've been able to do it out of coffee shop for the most part. And the only reason I finally started changing was that when people wanted to come and meet with me or newspapers wanted to interview me, it was awkward to have people taking photos at a coffee shop. So I broke down and spent a couple $100 a month to find myself a place. But, one, like you said, sales have been tight, so a lot of people have been shoved back into their home whether or not they wanted to, or sales are tight and the margins are so low that it just doesn't make any sense to have yourself, some fancy office. But two, again, I guess this is the marketer in me, but you can turn that around to a benefit. A reasonably clean car and a bunch of technology that allows you to do that kind of stuff everywhere. Copies, you can have a home copy machine now for a couple $100 that's also a fax and everything else.
Right.
And I don't know. Do you blow $7,000 a year when you look at all the different costs for an office, or do you blow $400 or $500 a year and get yourself a tax write-off and then spend all your time making money instead of worrying about where you do your copy making?
Right. Plus, there are opportunities. There's a company, I believe it's called Regis.com, and this is a commercial office center. They provide space for people to rent virtually and to meet with clients in a conference room, and it's very, very inexpensive. And I know a lot of people are looking into that option as well, because sometimes clients do want to meet them at a location, and maybe they don't have the home or the space in their home to accommodate a meeting at their home as an agent.
Mm-hmm. I've taken some meetings at the Regis places, and every single one of them is lovely, and I'm sure there's other companies that do it, but I know the Regis name as well, so I certainly could recommend that. And they have a really neat process in which you can pick a couple of cities, so you can even have presence established to make yourself look like you have a, San Francisco, New York, and Dallas office if you want. That's certainly one way to do it. The other way to do it, if depending where you are, if you're in a bigger city, like I'm sitting here in Manhattan right now, lots of people take meetings in the hotels. They'll just go to a bigger hotel cafe, and then it's all pretty and nice and whatever, and you don't feel weird. I understand the part about not necessarily wanting to be into people's homes. If your home isn't set up for that, or if you've got a bunch of kids running around, it wouldn't work in my house. My kids are too young, and we would have a conversation about Nintendo or something while we were trying to sign papers. So,
right.
It's not for everybody. But you're really smart to bring up the Regis thing, Eric, because I think that those things are very beautiful, and a lot of people get a lot of value out of being there.
Well, it's amazing too that you go on the internet and you go to a website and you see a really impressive website. With all the bells and whistles, and there's a very good chance that this company is someone working out of his home. But there's a feel and a presence like this company is huge and all over the world. He could be one of those guys that has Regis offices with offices in New York, Tokyo, Dallas, and California.
Totally so. And I get that question a lot, to be honest. Let's pause for a second, because I get that question a lot. That sort of, should I make myself look really big for my britches? Mm-hmm. And, I had a friend who did that. A friend of mine bought like the 2 or 3 office deal. And what she got was, she actually got like physical mailing addresses in all those places.
Right.
And I thought, well, so wait, so you're, one, you got to collect all your mail from all over the U.S. 2, you got to fly to those places if you want to meet somebody. So you better hope your deal is worth at least more than $2,000.
Right.
And then, it just struck me as more work. The other thing is these big websites that have shiny office park buildings in them and stuff like that, you took a photo when you drove by, and that have a lot of the word "we" on it. Mm-hmm. Frankly, there's a couple ways you can go. You could be part of a big franchise. You're associated and affiliated with Wells Fargo, and that's a name people know, and they have an impacted feeling when they hear it. Mm-hmm. Or you can just be a personality person and just sell. And it's going to be all about people's opinions of you, your trust, and everything that they make. And I think it's a harder sell, but I think it's a bigger sell in the end.
Well, what are some of the top 5 things, and 5 or more or less if you